In this video, what I'm going to do is take my trusty SG Standard that I've had for a number of years, and I'm going to swap out the stock pickups with pickups that I use in the guitars that I make. Here is one. This is a Charleston Guitars Liberation model, and it has these wonderful Lindy Fralin Split Blades. And I'm going to put these electronics in this guitar. Now this is something for luthiers. If you're an adventurous guitarist, go for it. But I think most people aren't going to want to gut their guitars, do some routing, and rip out and replace all the electronics. But I will. While I'm at it, I'm going to replace the switch with a 6-position switch, which I really like, that gives me all of the tonal combinations of the single coils. And do a little adjustment down here as well. I'll make a custom pick card to account for the height. And let's hope it all goes well. So let's get started. Taking down the guitar is very straightforward. You remove the strings, the tailpiece, pop off the bridge. Then it's important to make some measurements. I want to make a custom pick guard, and I want to make sure it's the right height. With the measurements taken down, I remove the pick guard, remove the access panel to the control cavity, then cut the wires to the pickups. And I want to be very careful to not disturb the ground wire. That's important because I will need that, and it'd be really hard to replace. With the retaining nuts removed from the face of the guitar, the controls simply pop out the bottom. I cut the ground wire as close as I can to the potentiometer, and that will give me as much length as possible to use later. I'll be replacing the stock bridge with the Graphtec Resimax bridge. The Resimax bridge is magnetized, so it stays on the bridge post securely when you remove the strings, and that's very convenient. I removed the original bridge post by prying them out. I'll replace the classic tuners with Planet Waves locking tuners that also have automatic wire cutters built in, so when you tune your strings, they're automatically cut off. And with all the tuners removed, the guitar is now ready to be upgraded. Here's the SG Standard, gutted. You can see nothing left in it. Remove the tuners, pickups, bridge posts. The only problem I hit was a little tiny chip here, easy to fix, no big deal. And just eyeballing it, the main operation we have to do here is to enlarge this space a little bit for a much larger switch. We'll be installing this really cool switch called a freeway. It's a 6-position switch. Obviously a little wider, you have all these contacts to solder your connections onto, and it's just a little large. So we'll have to be very careful in routing this out because we don't want to damage the ground wire coming through. And on the top side, we'll be routing out for the middle pickup, adding a little space for the neck pickup, and a little bit of space for the bridge pickup. And really that should be about it. So pretty easy so far. And it's nice to appreciate an SG in this mode. Has a nice little ring to it. These are great little guitars, and hopefully we'll be making it a little bit better. The first step in the rebuild is to make sure that the new pick guard fits perfectly. That means aligning it with the center line that I've marked on the fretboard. and I very carefully have formed the holes where the bridge pins and the tailpiece pins rise up through, and I've got the pickups then marked where they're going to be. And then with that done, I'm ready to route out the cavities for the pickups, and that gives me a last chance to make sure all the measurements are perfect, and it will align nicely when everything's installed, and I can go ahead and mark out the area for the middle pickup that needs to be routed. Here's the middle pickup, just place there for sizing, make sure I got it right. So I'll be routing that cavity out, and also some corners and edges and a little bit at the bridge area for that pickup. And once all the routing's finished, I go back into the cavity and I coat everything with conductive paint so it's nicely grounded. Here's a view of the control cavity, and you can see where I've enlarged the area around the switch. And this is a nice view of the freeway switch. You can see there's numerous contacts to essentially make any pickup combination you can imagine with 6 selections. And this is also a good shot of the ground wire coming through that you have to be very careful not to damage in the process. When assembling the electronics, I like to lay them out and very carefully test the physical connections and then the solder joints to make sure that everything is very, very firm. And I'll check against the schematic as I go. So if I'm careful and meticulous, everything works the first time. And that's very convenient when you're putting all this wiring into a cavity. It's a real pain to have to remove it later to fix something. So here's a good shot of the electronics. You can see I've got orange cap capacitors, and there's a treble bleed circuit in the master volume. You can see the freeway is all wired up for the pickup selections I want, and we're essentially ready to go. I like very high quality hookup wire. I use Silver Sonic quite a bit. It has great throughput, doesn't pull any of the signal out. And here's the other side of the controls, and you see where I will tape contact points off to avoid any kind of short circuit. Because I like to complete my cavities with copper on either side, and that makes a nice envelope. Here's the copper added to the control cavity and as well to the panel. So there are the final controls, all installed, all wired up, and ready for the connection to the pickups. The pickups are wired according to the standard Lindy Fralin diagram that you can find on their site. If you're interested at all in guitar electronics, they have some wonderful schematics that are very easy to follow. And this is pretty much their stock 4 single coil layout. The only difference would be for the half wound single at the bridge, I like to wire it to a mini switch to turn it on and off. And what you'll see in their schematic is it's wired to a push-pull switch. Here's the finished guitar with the hand-carved Italian olive wood pickguard that contrasts beautifully with the new pickups, the rosewood fingerboard, and the black background of the guitar body. On the back of the headstock, I set off the new tuners with this beautiful treated copper veneer. So all that's left to do now is plug it in and hear it. Here we go.